Tonight, some are reminded of 2013 when the IRS official Lois Lerner revealed that the agency was targeting conservative groups seeking tax-exempt status. As House Democrats ramp up their demands to see President Trump's tax returns, Republicans say this, quote, weaponization of the IRS is happening again. Earlier, I spoke with one of those Republicans, Senator Chuck Grassley, chairman of the House Finance Committee. Let's start with this request for the president's tax returns and whether or not you think there is a politicalization or a weaponization, as these words are thrown around so much lately, in that request.
Absolutely. LBJ, Nixon used IRS against their political enemies. That's why in 1976 we passed a law saying that your tax returns are private. You can't show them to anybody else. So I see this as an illegitimate use of the tax returns. It's very legitimate to use them for legislative purposes. I have sometimes seen people's tax returns with the name redacted, so you don't know who it is, but in the pursuit of maybe closing a loophole or something like that, you need information to write legislation. This isn't what the House is about. This is about politicizing Trump and going after him, and that's entirely wrong. It's a misuse of congressional oversight. It's a misuse of the chairman, and I'm a chairman that can ask for it, to use it.
What do you say, Senator, though, to those who say, you know, every president going back to Richard Nixon has released their tax returns? We know the president said during the 2016 election cycle that he would, and then he did not. And do you believe that someone is under audit for this many years? And if so, I mean, if the IRS has been auditing him for all these years, I guess there's also a conclusion that you could draw from that, that apparently they haven't found anything, or I would imagine they would have gone after him.
Well, of course. Now, every president that's done it since Nixon's, it's voluntary. If the president wants to do this voluntarily, that's his decision. But remember, this was an issue in the election of 2016. It didn't keep him from being elected because he didn't release his tax returns, and he hasn't done it since. He says when they are released, he wants it to be fully audited so that he knows what the tax that he files, they're right or wrong, and so consequently, it's up to him. But you can't use the power of being chairman of a committee. I don't feel I can to politicize the same way Nixon did, to go after his political enemies, and they obviously consider Trump a political enemy.
All right, let me ask you about a letter that you sent to the Attorney General, William Barr, about concerns that you had over emails that were part of the Mueller investigation. What are the concerns that you have with regard to some of the people who were investigated, and what are you digging for here? What are you hoping that you're going to learn through this process of this letter to Bill Barr?
Well, here's where we are on that, and I gave a speech on this just lately on the Senate floor. It deals with people going after the Mueller report and wanting to see it fully, not in a non-redacted version, and they seem to be religiously pursuing that at the very same time that a lot of us have been pursuing things that ought to be fully investigated, that were similar presumed violations of laws. If you want to investigate something fully and have all the documents, doesn't it apply to all sorts of political interference in the operation of the Justice Department and the politicization of the CIA, that it ought to be used for
you want to investigate the origins of the investigation, and you want to make sure that that is also happening when there's a request for full disclosure. It seems like both sides just only want what they're interested in, but I think both sides should have the transparency that you're seeking in order to really figure out what happened on all sides of this equation. Before I let you go, sir, I just want to get your reaction to the changes that happened today at DHS, and do you think it is right that Kirstjen Nielsen, the head of the Homeland Security Department, is now moving on?
I'm surprised that concerning what the president said last October and November about her, about ready to fire her, and everything seemed to have gone smoothly since then. I'm very surprised. But the president has a right to have whoever he wants, and the acting person is very well qualified. I'm worried about what I have seen further down in the bureaucracy, like in the Immigration Service, where I know Director Cisna of that, and I know his policy director there because the policy director, Kathy, worked for me for 17 years. Cisna was on my staff as a detailee for 3 years working with Kathy. They are now the policy people down there that give an intellectual and a policy basis for exactly the policies that the president wants in immigration, and it would be a real mistake if they go that far down into the bureaucracy to fire good people like that I've worked with for 17 years.
All right, Senator Grassley, thank you very much. Good to see you tonight, as always, sir. Thanks for being here.
You might have heard Kirstjen Nielsen is out as Homeland Security Secretary. President Trump doubles down on his crackdown at the border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Kevin McAleenan will become the acting DHS secretary. Now, this comes as the president is reportedly planning a massive overhaul to fix the crisis. He tweeted, "More apprehensions, captures at the southern border than in many years. Border Patrol, amazing. Country is full. System has been broken for many years. Democrats in Congress must agree to fix loopholes. No open borders, crimes and drugs. Will close southern border if necessary." Democrats are seizing on the news and criticizing Nielsen for her time as secretary. Watch this.
For the rest of her life, people will look at her and think, oh, that's the woman who put children in cages. That's the woman who broke up families across the border. And you know what? They'll be right.
She has been a disgrace as Secretary of Homeland Security, and she leaves behind a legacy of separating families, caging children.
You almost have to feel sorry for Nielsen. I don't feel sorry for her, but almost, because, you know, she is willing to violate the dictates of humanity, morality, and ethics, but she's not actually willing to break the law.
Kirstjen Nielsen will be known for implementing a cruel policy of forcibly separating parents and children.
But White House Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley says this just proves that Democrats' priorities are not on protecting the homeland.
I do find it kind of interesting that the media is so focused on what happened behind the scenes with the resignation of Secretary Nielsen instead of worrying about what's actually happening at the border. And we have a crisis down there, an emergency, and the media refuses to focus on that, but instead wants to talk about palace intrigue.
And acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney also doubling down on the criticism of Democrats' handling of immigration.
In fact, and I know it's hard to imagine, but again, Nancy Pelosi runs the Democrats in Congress. Mexico has done more in the last week to help our illegal immigration crisis than Nancy Pelosi and Democrats in the House would. So that's been a pretty good week.
All right, we're going to take it around the table. We've got to start with you, Greg.
Yes, I just find it richly ironic when Jeffrey Toobin accuses anybody of breaking up families.
Oh.
So anyway, and the other thing is, let's remember where that story started when those pictures first came out in the media on Twitter. Those were pictures that were from the time when President Obama was president. So this was a problem that was the splitting up of families that was shared by both families. This is the first time in probably recent history that we have a non-politician trying to solve a problem that was shared by both parties. We can agree that this is this is the responsibility of Democrats and Republicans. Okay, you got to look at Trump as a general manager of a sports team. The situations are not dictated by the players, right? The players are dictated by the situation. So when the situation requires a fix, he replaces people to affect the situation. So it's like baseball. If the current lineup isn't working, you say you bench the guy, or you get rid of the guy, you trade the guy for somebody else. That's all he does, and he sees if it works. And again, and I've said this before, the person who takes the long-term solution will never be treated sympathetically. Long-term solutions always seem harsh in the short term. You know, the media are the children who want ice cream for breakfast, right? Trump is the parent saying, no, you know what? To be a healthy adult, you're going to have to eat like this. So
eat your greens.
Eat your greens. What Trump is trying to do is affect the long-term solution that will remain that way after he's out of office, knowing that he's sacrificing so much capital. Everybody hates him for being the parent, the media especially, because they're the children who basically pushed this lie that this was the first administration to separate families.
It is the truth.
Oh, really?
The
Remember
truth
those pictures?
is, no, hang on. The truth is that Obama was dealing with unaccompanied minors. Here you have families. So you have moms and children who were separated by Nielsen. And
yes,
the second
and
point,
why?
Again, I think that it's not only is it illegal, it's unethical and immoral.
So
but
what do you
I
do?
think
So you
that's
put them in
why.
the same position?
No,
in the same
I'm just saying
compound
what you said
with
wasn't
strangers.
True. It's just not true what you said. But I'm going to say
so
something
it was
else.
working perfectly.
It wasn't working. We have a different kind of issue now with so many families and children with those families.
Why?
Why? Because, and again, I just want to say, does all that he's done make you feel safer? Getting rid of Nielsen, getting rid of the Secret Service. It seems to me this is so dangerous in terms of our national security. We saw today from the brain room, this guy has more cabinet positions gone than everybody going way back. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Sticking on immigration, Katie, your thoughts, of course. Kirstjen Nielsen, I think, in some ways was in an impossible situation, right? She's confined by the law. Right. The president doesn't like the law. A lot of people don't like the law, but Congress won't fix the law. Yeah. And so she wasn't able to be tougher in the way that he wanted. So as Greg said, maybe you change the player.
This has been a long time coming. This was not some rash decision that President Trump made. Kirstjen Nielsen has been on the rocks for a long time with President Trump. She's been able to solidify her position for a couple of months, but this is something that was inevitably going to come. It's very difficult for any Department of Homeland Security secretary to do anything more than they're doing now with this influx of people due to the way that the system is set up with the catch and release. Now, there is hope with McAleenan because he does have a good relationship with people on Capitol Hill. He worked for Barack Obama and was on the front lines of this crisis when it started in 2014. And as Greg said, the photos that everybody was saying belonged to the Obama administration about the children being in cages, those were from 2014, and we at Town Hall and at Breitbart were some of the only reporters in the entire media who were actually publishing those photos and warning about the crisis that was coming. So McAleenan has seen this from the beginning. He knows what needs to be done, and hopefully he can work with committees like the Senate Judiciary Committee, where the attorneys there working on immigration know what needs to be fixed so they can actually come up with something to change this. And one more thing, all these Democrats are talking about how horrible Kirstjen Nielsen was, that she was a terrible person for separating parents and children. Well, if you break the law in America and go to prison, you get separated from your family, first of all. Second of all, what is their solution? They're name-calling a whole lot, but they're not putting any legislation on the table to actually solve the problem, which sets up a talking point for them for years to come, in 10, 20 years, when you're saying all these children were brought here by their parents illegally, should we have a Dreamer program from them as well? It's a whole nother system that they're setting up in political capital that they are engaging off of right now.
Jesse, in the time we have remaining, I'll give you the floor.
Think about it for a second. You have America, the greatest country on the face of the earth, that can't stop foreigners from coming here and staying here because of dumb laws and dumber politicians. We're erasing our own borders ourselves. If you think about it, person in Central America, grab a kid, your kid, any kid, doesn't matter, hop on a caravan, come up north, set one foot in Texas, and we can't do anything about it. Your kid, whoever it is that you're bringing there, they're a dreamer, their kid, they're going to be a citizen. You yourself, you go to California, you're going to get welfare, you're going to get a driver's license, you're going to get health care. You commit a felony, no one's even going to deport you. You can do whatever you want. So the Democrats, they want this situation to be status quo. They don't care about families being separated. If they did, they'd do something to fix it. Pelosi had an opportunity herself when she cut the deal with Trump last month. Did she offer an asylum fix, a detention fix? She offered literally nothing except a few more beds. So when the Democrats talk, don't listen to them. I don't even hear what they're saying. Look what they're doing, and they're absolutely doing nothing.
Well, and then they tried to cut the beds. Remember, they tried to cut the number of beds that ICE was allowed to have?
Well, you know what? You take a look at what the Republicans, what Trump's doing. It seems to me that whenever Trump runs into a complex situation, he has a simple solution, and he decides that he wants to go beyond the law. And that's what happened with Kirstjen Nielsen. She went in there yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock. She didn't intend to resign. And he's telling her, stop this. Just stop people from applying for asylum. Kick people out. Get rid of the judges. Get rid of the judges.
Again, Juan has no solution. All he does is pot
No,
shot.
I have solutions.
You have
We've
nothing,
gone
Juan.
over them last week.
Greg asked you what they were. You had nothing to say.
Last week I told you when I said...
Well, your party has no solution.
That's not true. Everybody agrees we need more detention facilities, more judges. We need more...
All right, you guys, I don't want the producer yelling at me anymore because of you. All right.